That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Commissioner Cooper, and it is week 3, and you're here for your Friday night breakdown. We're here to give it to you. We're going to break down all of week 1. We got lots of fantasy friends who are along. We got Nikki's Friday Night Fantasies. We got Bandy's flexing with his flex starts of the week. We got Judge Jordan in the building for his fantasy court. And Chuck Bass is going to play the hits for us as well. We're going to break down all of week 1. And in the VIP Lounge, we got Keith Flemming in the house to break it down for us. Thankfully, Brian Scott's in because we got a lot of injuries to talk about. Let's get things started. It's time for TSS Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy. Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy. Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy.
You know, the great thing about being a football player is you don't have to take a shower to go to work.
There it is.
Indeed. Gotta love it. All right, well, let's get things started in the VIP Lounge. We'll start with him first. Keith Flemming is in the house. Welcome into the studio, my brother.
What's up, guys, man? Always a blast to come on here. You guys do some of the best work in fantasy and love chopping it up with you guys.
We love to have you. We appreciate that. And let's also welcome to the building Justice
Herrera.
Justin Jesus Herrera. Welcome in the studio, my friend. Oh, you're on mute. Not doing yourself any justice there.
Yeah. I was about to say that could be my new bailiff identification. I could be
Or
a new
your
bailiff
WWE
character
name.
for Judge Jordan. Justice Herrera. Because when Judge is swinging the hammer, he brings in his justice.
I love it.
It's a gavel.
Yeah, I know
Welcome
it's a
in.
gavel, but whatever. Hammer down is the new thing we're doing here. Get with it, Jordan.
Welcome in, my brother. Also welcome in. He's been sick all week, this guy, but I'm glad he made it in and even pulled a fantasy court for us. Judge, welcome in. Appreciate you being with us. Jordan Thomas, welcome in, sir.
Ah, man, glad to be back. And guys, we were this close for me spending all night tonight busting Justice Herrera's ass about those 49ers, but they were
weren't
able
even
to
close.
pull away against those Giants.
Really
even
close.
I was just saying, how close?
This close. They were in it.
All right, real quick. If you have not done so already, go to tssfantasy.com. Look at all of our latest and greatest rankings on there. I think Jordan actually, have you gotten yours up there yet? I don't know if Jordan might be a little late on his, but those are all coming up here shortly. Also, don't forget, go to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code TSS. We'll double that deposit up to $100. So make sure you go to there. Also, go to Jazz Sportsbooks as well. We got lots of great promos there. Use the promo code TSS. And if you're looking for some championship bling for your fantasy champion next season, go to Pro Am Belts. Got lots of great products for you there. All right, we're done paying the bills. Jordan talked about it, alluded to it. Let's get into last night a little bit. We'll get into some news.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
So I don't know what game Jordan was watching, but that seemed to be a pretty much an ass whooping from the get-go. 49ers 30, Giants 12. Brock Purdy, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, this was the interesting part for me. Christian McCaffrey, 18 carries, 85 yards, the TD, 5 receptions, 34 yards. Christian McCaffrey numbers. But Elijah Mitchell, 11 carries, 42 yards, the 3 receptions, 2 yards. I think that speaks a lot to what this offense might do going forward to eliminate Christian McCaffrey getting hurt toward the playoffs. So something to take note of. Even Eli Mitchell, if he's out there on a waiver wire happens to be, might be somebody who'd be nice to even play in your flex spot the way this offense runs the football. Deebo Samuel, 6 receptions, 129 without Brandon Ayuk. He had the TD as well. George Kittle as well, 7 receptions, 90 yards. Ronnie Bell made it into the end zone. I would go over the Giants stats. There's really just not much to talk about. Daniel Jones, 137 yards with a pick. Matt Breida got in the end zone. He also had 3 receptions that all amounted for 1 yard. So there was a lot to go over there, guys. Any big reaction from last night? Justin, this is your team, so I'm going to give you the floor. Any big overreaction or reaction to last night's game, where you pretty much thought this is what we thought it was?
Yeah, no, it was exactly what we thought it was. The only reason the Giants even came close to scoring and making it a game, as Judge Jordan said. But, I mean, you look at the stat sheet, they tripled them in yards. They tripled them in time of possession. It was not even freaking close. But the only reason they scored was because of 2 Diamador Lenore penalties where he just could not handle Darren Waller. So boo-hoo to that. It happens to everybody. But one thing I'm taking away from this game is Brock Purdy got blitzed 84% of the time, and he had that kind of a game. Everybody's saying this is Brock Purdy's worst game because he didn't have a downfield threat in Brandon Ayuk. Guys, if this is Brock Purdy's worst game, then I think we're in for a good season in San Francisco. It kind of feels like San Francisco having Brock Purdy, having made that decision, was the right decision. He just seems to know what he's doing out there. And welcome to the party, Mr. Purdy, because you might be making your first appearance as a QB1 in fantasy this week after that 300-yard, 2-touchdown game. This was a big week, a big show-out week. We weren't going to lose to those pesky Giants. And, I'm glad that Debo's back. I'm glad that McCaffrey is sharing some time with Elijah Mitchell because, like you said, it's going to be like this. And Shanahan's pretty much put it out there. It's going to be game flow. If the game it necessitates Christian McCaffrey being out there 30 times, he's going to be out there 30 times. But if it's going real easy for them, like this Arizona game might go, Elijah Mitchell might get a touchdown. He might get 50 yards. That's just kind of going to be one of those things that you're going to kind of have to monitor. And I don't know if I would go get Elijah Mitchell right away and put him in the flex, but definitely consider it with some of these games coming up.
Definitely something to watch for sure. Keith, what do you say? Any big overreaction from last night?
Not an overreaction, just that I think a lot of us, including myself, screwed up. Brock Purdy was the guy that you could have got really late. He had thrown multiple touchdown passes in every game he had played in. They have arguably the best core 4 of any offense in the league when you look at those 2 receivers, Kittle, obviously CMC. And as much as I hate to say this because screw Shanahan as a Falcons fan, but he's a great play caller. He's going to scheme people open, and they're going to have big plays. And, I get into this with people that I think Purdy is not necessarily this uber talented guy, but I think he's perfect for that system because he makes quick decisions. He's just athletic enough. He does what Shanahan, says. He's good at understanding his reads. I think he's going to have a monster year. I mean, you look at it, the one game he didn't have 2 touchdowns, he had 300 yards and a rushing touchdown. So I think he is a QB, one right now.
There are no doubt, 49ers, no doubt a top contender in the NFL right now. Jordan, what do you say, my friend?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to give Justin a little bit of grief because, the Giants were at least in this game at halftime, unlike the first 2 weeks of the season. So they at least showed a little bit of fight, but this game never really was going to be close. And I think the guy that I am most impressed by is a guy like Elijah Mitchell, where you have running backs falling left and right. He's becoming more and more of a viable play, and I think there's room in this backfield for both of those guys to eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, go ahead, Dustin.
I got one last add to this because I wasn't on the Dynasty show this week. Go add Ronnie Bell to your Dynasty rosters. He is going to be worth that taxi squad spot. I mean, this guy is going to be taking over that Jawan Jennings role soon enough. And if you saw him last night, he did not look like a rookie on that field.
No, he definitely didn't. It was exciting to see somebody else catching the football. The
seventh rounder too. That's really cool, man.
That is really cool. Absolutely. All right, well, let's get on from this ass whooping. Let's get Brian in because we got a lot of injuries to talk about. And I'm sorry, Brian is our resident Giants fan as well. Brian Scott, what about last night? Welcome in, my friend.
That went about how I thought it was going to go. Yeah, no surprise. I mean, I was actually more surprised that they kept it as close as they did for as long as they did. But
they kept the fight.
You could kind of slowly see the wheels kind of falling off toward the end there. So not
that red zone defense was pretty good. I'll give the Giants a lot of due on that one. The red zone defense was pretty damn good.
Yeah, you know, they held their own for as long as they could, but you know, when the defense is out there that long with those long drives that the 49ers had, there's no way you're going to keep them from getting points on the board. And then your offense was just pathetic, of course, because, you know, whatever. But it is what it is.
No doubt your pride is hurt, but let's talk about the guys that are hurt coming up for week 3.
Yes, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them for sure. We'll start at the quarterback position because I know everyone's curious to hear about Joe Burrow. You know, he aggravated that calf last week. They said he's day-to-day. He's been doing some stuff at practice. He doesn't look too hampered by it. I don't think this is really going to be a major setback for him. It could be one of those things that kind of lingers week to week here, but he seems to be getting better when he has the time to rest and recover. That being said, they started warming up Joe Mixon as the emergency backup third quarterback. They're in practice today, so they might not be too confident that he's going to make it here. But I do think we see him play. I think depending on how the game plays out, he might get some limited action. You know, if they go up big or down big, we'll probably see him get taken out for their backup. But I do expect him out there. He's a tough cat. I don't see him shying away from playing with the little calf strain here. In other quarterback news, both Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson have officially been ruled out. It sounds like Bryce Young's probably going to miss at least 2 weeks with this ankle injury, while Anthony Richardson has been on concussion protocol and hasn't been able to do anything yet. So we'll have to see how he advances through that next week. But both are officially out this week. Running back position, man, you know, they're dropping like flies very early this year. Obviously, everybody, you know, knows about Nick Chubb. Potentially serious career-ending injury there to the same knee that he had a potentially career-ending serious knee injury in college. To come back from that once as well as he did, for as long as he did, is quite remarkable. I can't see it happening twice, unfortunately. It'll be a long time before we really kind of see the effects of that. Derrick Henry's been dealing with a toe injury. Didn't practice for 2 days straight, but then did return to practice today. Not sure if he was limited or not. Sounds like he's going to be ready to go. We might see him in a limited capacity based on the severity of that injury and whether or not it hampers him on game day. So pay close attention there. He might not get a full workload. Aaron Jones dealing with a hamstring injury, did return to practice today in a limited fashion. Could be a true game time decision, so I'd pay attention to that. Austin Eckler battling this ankle injury. Sounds like he's actually back in the facility, hasn't stepped on the field as of yet. So we'll have to see what happens next week, you know, whether or not he's actually on the field doing some limited action or not. I'm hoping this doesn't turn into a multi-week thing, but it's not starting out too good here as he's missed a lot of time already from doing anything. David Montgomery was dealing with some type of thigh contusion. It sounds like it's significant enough. He's listed as doubtful, which basically carries with it a 25% chance that he'll play, which is not good odds. If you're looking at this weekend. So it could be a game time decision. He might have to test that out in warmups and see how he feels. So pay attention there. Usually they got to list them. I think it's within 90 minutes of kickoff. So you should know that morning. So you got to pay really close attention there as game time nears. Jamal Williams officially listed out with a hamstring injury that he left during Monday Night Football early. But Kendre Miller's coming back for the Saints. So that could be beneficial for him and people with him on the roster. He was also dealing with some type of hamstring issue as well. Justice Hill dealing with a turf toe. They're saying it could be not significant and that he shouldn't miss much time. And then all of a sudden today they listed him out officially. So might turn out to be a little bit longer than they were thinking originally. We'll have to see if he can get back to action on the practice field next week. Amari Cooper should be a full go. I don't see these issues keeping him off the field. He played through a groin thing that popped up late last week. I'm not sure what the shoulder thing that they're mentioning is, but he still was productive, 7 catches for 90 yards. I don't see this being an issue. Practiced today as well. Amon St. Rob Brown returned to practice today as well after not practicing at all yesterday with some type of turf toe or some type of turf injury. Doesn't sound like it's serious as well. I think maybe they would just give him a rest day there. Christian Watson, apparently he didn't practice yesterday, not because of the hamstring, but apparently because it was a rest day after practicing 2 days with that hamstring. So it sounds like he's going to be ready this weekend. Could be a game time thing. Pay close attention there. Jalen Waddle. I don't. Jason, you can answer this for me because I don't know if he practiced or did anything today, but he's on concussion protocol. It didn't sound good yesterday.
Yeah, he was actually limited today, so he was at practice today. So it's still up in the air if he's going to play or not.
Yeah, that could be. The concussion protocol. You got to be able to get through pretty much a full practice. I don't think he's going to be ready. We'll see what happens, but it sounds like he should be listed as questionable, but that doesn't mean he's going to play. Jacoby Myers is coming out of concussion protocol and has been cleared. He had a full practice today. We should see him this weekend. Brandon Cooks, limited practice during the week here. No designation for the weekend game as of yet. Not really sure. He's dealing with some type of knee issue. Haven't really seen a lot of details about it. So, follow your local beat reporters for that because it could be a game time thing. OBJ is out with this ankle. Officially, he hadn't done anything all week in practice. And unfortunately, Zay Jones, who I didn't even realize got hurt, has been officially listed out as well. And as is Logan Thomas with a concussion, he's out officially as well. So a lot of guys out, a lot of injuries to deal with here early in the season. Not looking good for the rest of the year. Some big names, big injuries as well.
Yeah, and big to pay attention to that waiver wire. Craig Reynolds is a name to bring up. Talking about that Detroit backfield. A lot of names for some of these guys that might be down. So we'll talk about that as we get into these games. Brian, we appreciate you. I know you won't be seeing you on Sunday, but we'll see you on next week, of course. Let everyone know where they can follow and get all of your great content in the meantime.
Yeah, I won't be on air Sunday, but I should be able to put out some tweets. So pay attention to my Twitter account @InjuredListPod and the website, theinjuredlist.com. Andrew Leduc and I have got our Inside the Medical Tent blog up and running and doing very successful this year. We changed things up a little bit, but check it out. I think you'll find it very helpful, and we're adding even more content with more analysis in there, so it's going to be even more worth signing up and log it into the blog. So check it out.
Nice. And make sure you go follow, subscribe, get all his great content. And don't worry, Brian, he's a duck to us. Don't worry about that. All right, it's Friday night. It's Friday night. Hope your guys are a little loose. It's time for the Friday night breakdown. Bring it on in. All right, let's break this week 3 on down. We got a lot to cover here, and we're going to let our guests go first, of course. I want to set him up with his hometown team, the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to Detroit to play the Detroit Lions. Falcons against fantasy QBs were 12th. Running backs are 4th against receivers, 5th. Tight ends, 21st. Surprisingly good defense from the Falcons. Lions, 28th against fantasy QBs, 15th versus running backs, 24th against receivers, and 30th versus tight ends. Keith, talk about this matchup. Give me some guys you like, don't like. Tell us all about it.
All right. First off, I just want to say the stats lie. And this is a prime example of that. I'm a huge Falcons fan. I love them. They should have taken Jalen Carter, and maybe the defense really would be good, but we played Bryce Young. We've seen what that Carolina offensive line and offense looks like. And then we played Jordan Love and the Packers. That's why I was high on the Falcons at the beginning of the year. Look at the QBs we play. We had Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins. That's by far the best 4 QBs we play. We've already lost Rodgers. But Goff is going to be a problem. Like this Falcons team, they're 17th in pressure rate, so we're still not getting pressure. Only 4 teams have, less sacks than the Falcons through 2 games. 24 have more. We've given up the 4th most passing touchdowns, despite giving up the 3rd least amount of passing yards. So again, it's not that this defense is a juggernaut. It's just the offensives that we played have been really bad. And Jared Goff indoors is a beast, man. I hammered him in DFS last year. I like him again this week. He's one of my favorite plays in that range. He averaged 19.4 points per game at home. On the road, 12.36. What's crazy about that 19 points per game, that included a Cowboy game that he scored 3.5 points. You take that away, Jared Goff was a top 5 QB at home last year in DFS. Just unbelievable stuff. Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of scares me a little bit this week, with the toe injury. So if you're going to play Goff, I like stacking him with Reynolds, who is really their more explosive down the field receiver anyway, which that's the guy that typically give the Falcons the most trouble. AJ Terrell will probably be on St. Brown more than he would be him. And then I love their tight end, who Chris Robin, when we recorded earlier today. I'm country. I mispronounce everything. I think I made him French by calling him Laporte. So I don't really know how you pronounce his name, but he is a beast. Last week, he was number 1 among tight ends in first down receptions, 2nd among tight ends in forced missed tackles. And the Falcons have now given up last week, they broke the streak, but in their last 7 games, dating back to last year, tight ends have 7 touchdown receptions against my Atlanta Falcons. So I love stacking Goff with those 2 guys. I think this game's going to be a shootout, though, because the Lions defense sucks as well. And the problem for the Lions is their issue is their linebackers. Where is the strength of our team? You try covering Bijan Robinson once he gets out of the backfield trying to catch passes. And, hey, maybe we'll throw it to Kyle Pitts this week. I don't know. Arthur Smith, if we're ever going to do it, this is the week. So far, the Lions have given up an average of 7 receptions to tight ends and 85 yards. I swear to freaking God, if Jonnu Smith ends up with more targets and catches this week, I will go down and riot at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I actually do like Kyle Pitts this week. He's going to be low home because people are terrified, and rightfully so, to have him. But if it's ever going to happen, it's going to be this week. I also think Bijan Robinson is just an extreme discount on DraftKings. FanDuel, I would be a little hesitant because you don't get that PPR. You don't ever know how many carries he's going to get, the red zone situation. But good luck to the Lions, linebackers, and safeties trying to cover that dude. Catching passes, he's seen at least 6 targets in both games. Drake London is the one that I'm not really sure about. And obviously, I'm always concerned with Desmond Ridder. Which Ridder are we going to get? The one that looked like the worst quarterback in the league for 3 quarters last week, or the one that looked really good in the 4th? And the other thing that just scares me is the Falcons thus far have not allowed any points in the 4th quarter. We've outscored our opponents. It's like 37-0 in the 4th. We're Falcons. We're tortured. There's no way good stuff can continue to happen to us. So I think the Lions are going to win this game, and a close one, but I do think it's going to be shootout back and forth. And I think it's a game, if you're looking for a stack game, right, on DK or FanDuel, if you want to load up with 4 or 5 players, this is a great one because, again, you can get Goff, Laporte, Reynolds for about 13, 14K, and then you could run it back with, say, Robinson and Bijan and Pitts for about another 11. So you're talking about basically half your salary with 5 guys.
I think it's just Laporta, if where I've always said it. So, but I like
the dumb country bumpkin. I mispronounce every day.
It sounds so country when you say Laporte.
Yeah, deep South, man.
I love it. All right, let's get to the next one. Now, we talked about that being a fantasy bonanza. This one also might be as well. Chargers at the Vikings. Both defenses are pretty much garbage. Chargers are 31st against quarterbacks. They're 20th versus running backs. Dead last against receivers are 10th versus tight ends, whatever that means. Vikings are 25th against quarterbacks, 21st against running backs, 17th against receivers, and 7th versus tight ends. Talk about it, Justin.
Yeah, so this is 100% an offensive game. On defensive side, these 2 teams mirror each other incredibly well in their mediocrity. 66.7%. That is the red zone percentage that these teams have for red zone attempts and red zone touchdowns completed. So that means that just about like 4 out of 6 red zone attempts against these defenses are going in for a touchdown. That is fucking nuts. And that's not even the worst one. Look at the Seahawks. Every drive that the Seahawks have red zone against them have been a touchdown. So they're not even the worst ones, but that's pretty damn bad. And they're both tied at that. So this is going to be an all-around day. Justin Herbert continues to prove that he is, and I called him an MVP candidate. He's playing like an MVP candidate. The problem is the Chargers can't stop anything. So I'm looking at this game as you want to go out there, you want to start Kirk Cousins, you want to start Justin Herbert, get everybody in there. The only real spot where I'm hesitant is the running back. Minnesota's got 2 running backs now, Cam Akers, Alexander Madison. I don't want to pick. I chose neither one of them in any of my drafts. I don't want to pick now. I promise you that. DFS-wise, Keith may tell you differently.
Smart man, stay the hell away from both of them.
Yep, stay the hell away from both of them. Joshua Kelly, as far as that goes, the Vikings have been a little bit more lenient towards the run game. The Chargers have really been getting a hit in the passing game. They have allowed the most yards for a pass or against them passing-wise on defense, whereas the Minnesota Vikings have been more split half and half. So you've been able to run against them as well as pass the ball against them. Still don't know about Joshua Kelly. Last week was supposed to be a big week for him. Ended up being an absolute dud, an absolute flop. So I'll probably stay away from the running backs period in this game. But load up your Justin Jefferson. Load up your Keenan Allen. Load up your Mike Williams. Hell, Quentin Johnston might get a touchdown out there. I am going with the anytime Jordan Addison touchdown. I am going with the over on TJ Hawkinson. Last week, he went bonanza on the Eagles. What do you think he's going to do against an even worse defense? I am hitting it all on this one. Just for me, like I said, keep the running backs out of the situation. You'll be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, fantasy bonanza. I will just say, kind of like if you're talking and Keith was talking about Pitts, for Madison, it's like if there's ever a fucking time that he's going to do something, it better be now. And because Cam Akers really, I mean, he just coming over. I don't know how much he'd really play into this game. So Madison, he's going to get the bulk of the carries for this game. And if he doesn't do anything with them, then you're definitely going to see a split backfield going forward. All right, Jordan, let's go to the next one. Saints at the Packers. The Saints, interesting. They've been a good defense so far this year against fantasy QBs. They're 5th. Against running backs 11th, receivers 8th, tight ends number 1. Packers a little bit helter-skelter. They're 19th against QBs, 29th against running backs, 4th against receivers, 17th versus tight ends. Talk about it, Jordan.
So this isn't near as salivating as the matchup that Justin got, and I'm with him. I'm smashing everybody in that game. This game, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit. So I think there is a world low in QB1 where you're starting Derek Carr and you're starting Jordan Love this week. I'm not real excited about either one of them. I'm definitely more excited about Derek Carr. The running back side of this, I am avoiding at all costs. Unless if Aaron Jones plays. If Aaron Jones ends up playing in this game, then I do, obviously, I think you try him out. I'm not punching in Tony Jones Jr. I've seen enough of A.J. Dillon to know that I don't want to go down that road. The most interesting play in this matchup to me is easily Chris Olave, who continues to be a wide receiver 1. Has not gotten in the end zone yet. I think that changes this week. He is my guy to get in that has not so far. I do think you start Michael Thomas this week. I do think you start Rashid Shaheed this week. On the Packers side of the ball, I don't know if it's Jaden Reed. I don't know if it's going to be Christian Watson. I don't know that I'm feeling good about any of those guys. I'm not trying to start any of them with any kind of confidence.
Yeah, it's interesting on the other side of the football, especially the way the Saints defense has played as of recent as well. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. All right. Well, we got the breakdown going. It's Friday night. I know everybody's feeling kind of loose. It's time for Chuck Bass to play us a little hits. Let's keep the beats rolling with our DJ. Let's see what Chuck Bass got to bring this week.
Welcome to Playing the Hits with me, your boy, DJ Chuck Bass. It's homecoming week on the countdown, and we have got a bunch of lovely ladies we want to ask to the big dance. Now, fellas, women look for 3 things in a homecoming date: cute face, skinny waist, and a big behind. And by big behind, I of course mean tight ends. So let's take our promiscuous asses to the dance floor and get right to it. Leading off the countdown is a cult classic from the forgotten 4th album of the Florida rock band, The Jaguars. Evan Ingram is back, and this time it's personal. The big concerns with the last year's tight end 5 was that he would go from lead singer to backup vocals in this crowded Jaguars offense, but he has ripped off 13 targets in 2 games, which is tied for 3rd in the NFL. We'd like that trend to continue at home against the Texans. Now, they tell teenagers to leave room for Jesus when they're slow dancing, but I say leave room for Pat Freiermuth in your lineup. The Steelers' tight end has not exactly been serving it up on the floor, but after 2 weeks, he finally gets his chance to dance against the Raiders, who rank 28th in points allowed against the tight end. With Deontay Johnson on IR, we like the move to be the beneficiary in games when Kenny Pickett has time to throw. Now, this week's number 1 track comes with a parental advisory for explicit content. And I have just one question. This where you want to be when Kyle Pitts comes back? Our boy doubled his targets in snaps last week against the Packers offense that raced out to a big lead. We like the Lions to do something similarly, which should force Arthur Smith to help Kyle Pitts get his groove back. Detroit also just allowed the Seahawks tight ends to bust a nut to the tune of 9 receptions and 132 yards. Telling me Kyle Pitts can't do that? Forget playing the hits. This is playing the pits. DJ, bring it back.
Chuck Bass keeping the flow going. It was so funny as you were talking about Pitts. I was like, yeah, Chucky got a little something to say about that too. So good stuff from DJ Chuck Bass. We appreciate you. Let's get back to the breakdown. Texans at the Jags. Texans against fantasy QBs, not so good this season. They're 18th against running backs, 25th. Still against receivers, are 10th against tight ends, 16th. Jags, 27th against fantasy QBs, 3rd against running backs, 15th against receivers, and 27th versus tight ends. Keith, my friend, what do you say about this matchup?
I mean, honestly, it's really about CJ Stroud. I'm eating crow. I thought he was going to be a bust. I really did. I mean, basically every Ohio State quarterback, not named Joe Burrow, who didn't finish there, has been one. This dude's unbelievable. Right now, he is 4th in air yards. He has the most completions of 10 yards or more of anybody in the NFL with 18. He currently has more passing yards than Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and higher completion percentage than Joe Burrow and T-Law. Who had that on their bingo card? I don't think anybody did. And what I like about Stroud this week, it's, again, a DFS stack I really like, is Stroud with Dale and Collins. Is the Texans are a mess. Their offensive line's in shambles. They can't run the ball. They're throwing it 45.5 times per game. And they're playing the Jaguars, who can't get pressure on the QB. They are 29th in pressure rate right now. Last year, they were 25th, so this is not something new. They just consistently can't get at it. So CJ Stroud, who has been under duress in the first 2 games and balling, should have more time than he did in either of the 2 previous games. I love that stack of Dale and Collins. And Nico Collins on DraftKings, I think he's 5,600 this week. He's only gone up $400 since week 1. And this guy is seeing almost a 25% target share and an offense that's throwing it 45 times a game. That is the definition of value. Unfortunately for the Texans, though, their defense is awful. They've given up 6 rushing touchdowns on the season to wide receivers. They've given up 35 receptions for 342 yards and a touchdown. If you're a Travis Etienne owner, don't worry, you're going to get right this week. If you're upset because Calvin Ridley didn't have a great game as Christian Kirk was going off, don't worry, he's going to get right this week. If you're a T-Law owner, he's going to get right this week. My real question is how close can the Texans keep this? How many points can they keep up with them? But the Jags players are just so much more expensive in DFS. I would kind of lean away from them because, again, T-Law, Kirk's the one guy maybe I consider with Zay Jones being out. I love those Texas play. Dell's 3,400, 5,600 again for Collins. Same thing for Stroud in that range. And I think they're going to be down and chucking it. And with the Jaguars' inability to rush the pass, Stroud's proven, man, like I was wrong. He's looked really good. This kid may be a stud.
Yeah, might be a sneaky little fantasy little bonanza game. Who knows with these defenses both struggling. Let's get on to the game of the day. The Broncos at America's team, the Miami Dolphins. The Broncos against fantasy QBs are 20th, against running backs 22nd, against receivers 24th, and against tight ends 24th as well. Dolphins 17th against fantasy QBs, 28th against running backs. They're 7th against receivers, and they're 31st against tight ends. Justin, what say you?
Man, you're going to give me that just so I can talk good about them damn Dolphins. No, I love this game. I think it's going to be, you look at what the Broncos did in the past couple of weeks. And, Russell Wilson, while the team isn't winning, he's starting to come alive a little bit. They got Jerry Jeudy back last week. Marvin Mims made a big explosion game. I think the Dolphins are going to show out. They're going to be the Dolphins, right? The Broncos, they're proving that their defense was maybe, taking a step back ever since Vic Fangio left, and now he's over on the other side. So look for this game to be go all Jets to Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert. If you're feeling froggy in DFS, throw out some River Craycraft. He might get you something. If you're really feeling froggy in DFS, throw out some Devin A-Chain. He might get you something. But one thing you're going to lock in is Tua. This is going to be a battle. And it's going to be a battle of attrition. Who's going to be the last one standing at the end of the day? I think it'll probably be the Dolphins. And I think it's going to be one of those show-out games for Tua, as he's been doing all season long. On the other side, I like just about maybe about 50% of the roster. I'm going with Jeudy. I think Judy's going to bounce back this week. I think he's coming in hot. Not a big fan of Mims. I think just those 2 receptions for 113 yards. It was kind of a fluky game. Now that Judy's back, there's really no need to push Mims to the moon. You don't take Adam Troutman. Don't ever take Adam Troutman. Don't ever take Adam Troutman. Just keep saying that to yourself. I took him in one year. I was like heavy on the drafting of Adam Troutman. I never, ever do I want to see that name again. But play Javonte Williams. The Dolphins were not that great against the rush. Play Russell Wilson and maybe even throw a little bit of Samaje Perine in there. I don't know if it's going to be a hit, but I think it's worth a sleeper. Mims is Hims. Yeah, keep saying that to yourself, bud. Keep saying that to yourself. I think he's maybe a year out. I got him too on some dynasty rosters, but I still think he's like a year out. And then, who else did I miss? Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton was the last guy on my list. Still has been very unimpressive, very underwhelming, and I don't think that's going to change this week. Keep him on your bench as well.
Yeah, I think, not for nothing, I'm very nervous about this game. You got an 0-2 Broncos team that barely lost 2 games, so we're going to get their best punch. They don't want to go down 0-3. So it's going to be interesting for sure. All right, let's go to Jordan for the next one. This one might be the boring one of the day. Could be lots of defense here. Titans at the Browns. Titans against fantasy QBs are 20th, against running backs are number 1, 30th against receivers, and 13th versus tight ends. Browns number 2 against QBs, 7th against running backs, 2 against receivers, and 3 against tight ends. What say you, Jordan?
I just want to say thank you for easing me back into the action this week, not having to make me, cover anything too exciting. I'm not trying to start anything that I can help in this game. Ryan Tannehill, I want nothing to do with. I think if ever there's a Deshaun Watson game again, it might be this week, but I don't have a lot of confidence in it any longer. Nick Chubb was, the shining ray of hope here, and we all know that he's gone. I think if you spend all your fab money on Jerome Ford this weekend, you're probably playing him, right? But I'm not feeling great about it. I feel great about Derrick Henry, as should you if you are playing him this week. Wide receivers, I don't want to start D-Hop. I don't want to start Traylon Burks. I'm probably starting them both if I have them, but not with any kind of confidence. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, I like that side of the matchup a lot better. I'm definitely, starting Amari anywhere I have him, and I still continue to be like one of the 7 guys left out there that's still starting Elijah Moore in my lineup each week, just hoping for a different result. If you want a home run play, a dart throw, Donovan Peoples-Jones is always fun. On the tight end side, Chig hasn't been who I wanted him to be so far. I think he's a low-end tight end too. And David Njoku, same thing. I think he's a little bit touchdown dependent at this point. He's a low-end tight end 1 for me.
All right, I like you. One of the games would definitely be Snoresville, I think. Let's get to Bills at the Commanders. The Bills, they are 4th against fantasy QBs, 16th versus running backs, 6th versus receivers, and 4th versus tight ends. The Commanders, 11th against QBs, 8th against running backs, 25th against receivers, and 8th versus tight ends. Keith, talk about the matchup.
All right, this is one of the 3 games that people need to be aware of that you don't want anything to do with QBs and receivers. They are now calling for that nor'eastern to hit about 2 o'clock on Sunday. We're talking about like torrential rainfall, 30 to 45 mile an hour winds. It's really disappointing because one of the games was the Colts Ravens, and with the Colts being so bad versus wide receiver, I was like, Zay Flowers to the moon. I don't like that either. So in this game, I actually like the Commanders to win this game straight up. I think they're a more physical team. I think Brian Robinson's a better running back. I think he's going to have a big day. Washington's D is so underrated. I ended up drafting them in basically every league I was in this year because they were like top 5 EPA, run, pass, total defense. So far this season, they have 10 sacks and 16 tackles for loss. And Josh Allen, I don't know what happened, but since November last year, it's like, I don't know, like aliens came down and stole his body or something. Last 10 games, 13 interceptions, 29 sacks. I do understand playing Allen in your fantasy leagues because you kind of have to. Obviously, he's probably going to run more in this game, but I don't want anything to do with quarterbacks or receivers for the Jets-Pats game. This game and the Ravens Colts, I mean, they're talking really bad, nasty weather. And it's one thing if it's rain, it's one thing if it's heavy wind. When it's both, it's almost impossible to pass the ball.
Indeed. Well, let's get right to that next matchup. You were just talking about Colts at the Ravens. Colts against fantasy QBs are 24th, against running backs are 12th, against receivers 31st, against tight ends 17th. Against Ravens, they're 10th versus QBs, 5th versus running backs, 27th against receivers, 5th versus tight ends. Justin, talk about the matchup.
Yeah, so I live in that area that you're talking about right now, and I am crossing my fingers right now. I'm saying, Keith, let it come down all tomorrow,
Right.
and let it just be swifted away. Because I will literally stay at home and watch as couches and homeless people float on by, as long as it means I get some good football on Sunday. Let's go. Come on. Praise to the fantasy gods here. Fantasy Jesus, make it happen. But I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be a sloppy game. It's a terrible game for Zay Flowers, which, it was setting up to be an amazing game for him because Odell Beckham Jr. is out. This team has already been leaning heavily on him to begin with, and Mark Andrews is still getting right. So it was a perfect game for him. And then obviously the football gods had to make their decisions. But for this one, I'm going to go with, we're going to look at Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss is going to have himself an okay game. He showed out last week. As far as the Ravens, love me some Lamar Jackson in this game. It's going to be running all day long. We're going to see some vintage Lamar Jackson in here. I'll still say Mark Andrews because of that connection. I think that they're still going to be able to get something dialed up. I don't think it's going to be an amazing game, but I can still see a touchdown going his way. If you have Zay Flowers, if you don't have a better option, just plug him in because we never know. We've had some crazy games where, it's torrential downpours and they still throw the ball and they still get it off right. We got to remember the Bears 49ers game. I don't like remembering it, but there were still some crazy ass passes that happened in that game and some crazy ass results. Dante Pettis had his greatest fantasy game ever, and still to this day, we don't know where he's at. He might still be running off Soldier Field at this point. But if you don't have anybody better, I just keep him in because he's so good and there's so much potential there. But just taper it back to what it really is. He's a flex. Don't put him in as a wide receiver 2, expecting those numbers. Don't put him as a wide receiver 1, expecting those numbers. Flex. If you get 10 points out of him, be fucking happy with it. 1,000%. As far as Gardner Minshew goes, please do not start Gardner Minshew. It is going to be a terrible game to start Gardner Minshew. Another guy I wish was out there was Anthony Richardson. And because Gardner Minshew is out there, that pretty much for me limits Michael Pittman to a wide receiver 3 role. Their tight end situation is, I don't want to touch any of that. I don't even know why I brought that up. I'm sorry, guys. And then, like I said, throw Zach Moss in there because he is going to put out some solid flex numbers for you.
Zay Flowers does have 3 carries. So there is a chance maybe they get him involved in the run game if they can't throw. He is that explosive and athletic that, again, in a fantasy league, I'm with you. If you got no choice, it's not a bad option. DFS, though, I'm telling you, I would not have any QBs or receivers in those games.
And he's so good with like a screen pass. Mm-hmm. He could make something happen from behind the line. So I would still keep him in there unless you have like a golden flex on the side over there,
I was going to mention that with a few of the, players in that matchup, screen pass, anything while it's wet. And then all of a sudden you get the momentum and you're gone, So, as you mentioned before. All right, well, it's time, Judge Jordan. I know you weren't feeling good this week, but you sucked it up and you held fantasy court this week. So let's check out Judge Jordan's fantasy court for week 3.
What you are about to witness is real.
Hi, this court is now in session. You may be seated. This court would like to call to the stand Mr. Trevor Lawrence, quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Lawrence, there are currently 32 NFL teams, and on any given Sunday, there are 32 different quarterbacks starting in the National Football League. This past Sunday, Mr. Lawrence, you were dead last amongst all of them in pretty much everything, but primarily fantasy points.
Oh my.
Mr. Lawrence, this Kansas City Chiefs defense, which looked lost at times against Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions, all of a sudden looked like the 85 Bears against your squad.
I'm Samurai Mike, I stop 'em cold. Part of the defense, big and bold.
You finished the day with as many passing touchdowns as Aaron Rodgers. However, this court would like to applaud your effort with 7 red zone pass attempts. Mr. Lawrence, you were a record breaker on Sunday, and you became the first quarterback since Brett Favre back in 2006 to miss at least 7 receivers in the red zone.
Oh my God!
We will forgive you for trying to decapitate Calvin Ridley on the goal line, but for the love of God, can you please get Zay Jones a reception inbounds? Mr. Lawrence, in addition to the pathetic red zone play, you also managed a total of 4 sacks, and you fumbled the football on Sunday. While this performance was bad, we do believe you could still recover this season. Mr. Lawrence, this court finds you guilty of being an absolute scrub in week 2, but will give you a light sentence in scheduling you against the Texans, the Falcons, and the Colts in 3 of your next 4 matchups. Better days are ahead. This court is adjourned.
I am the law.
I appreciate you doing that. Not feeling well. You could tell the judge was a little off. We appreciate you sucking it up. All right. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I gave you some, boring games. Well, this is probably about the boringest one of them all. Patriots against those nasty, disgusting Jets. Patriots against fantasy QBs are 9th, against running backs 24th, receivers 18th, tight ends are 2nd. Jets are 14th versus QBs, 23rd versus running backs, 16th versus receivers, and 26th versus tight ends. Talk about it, Jordan.
Both of these teams, after week 1, just had this hype around them. Like, maybe it was going to be something that it wasn't, and then we all came back to earth, and they were exactly who we thought they were. Mac Jones, still a scrub. Zach Wilson, still worst quarterback in the National Football League. Not starting either one of them. As far as the running backs, you're starting Ramondre Stevenson. I am definitely starting a pissed off Breece Hall, who got absolutely nothing going against Dallas. I expect him to really pop off this week and have a really big game. As much as it feels like you can't trust Garrett Wilson because of Zach Wilson, he's still Garrett Wilson, and we saw it last Sunday. All it takes is one play and one guy to lose his footing, and that guy's gone for 75 yards. So, start him every week with absolute confidence. I don't care who's throwing him the ball. My biggest takeaway of this game is I really hope that someone like a Gardner Minshew this week or an Andy Dalton this week, someone who's getting the start, Jets, go get somebody. Go get somebody other than Zach Wilson so we can make this offense fun again. But outside of Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, I am not starting anybody.
So after all that, and after all that you just said, this is another game expected to be affected by this northeasterner type rain. So all of that plus the elements, yeah, no, thank you. All right, let's go to the next one. We get some little bit of fantasy relevance. Panthers at the Seahawks, maybe a little. Panthers against fantasy QBs are 3rd, against running backs are 30th, against receivers are 3rd, tight ends are 20th. Again, the Seahawks are 22nd against fantasy QBs, 26th against running backs, 29th against receivers, 19th versus tight ends. Keith, what say you on this matchup?
This is another game that I'm predicting an upset. I actually think the Panthers are going to go to Seattle and win this game. The Seahawks defense is trash, absolute trash. And this is going to sound like it's a shot at Bryce Young. It's not. He's young. He's behind a bad offensive line. He doesn't really have weapons. But I think Andy Dalton actually can do a better job right now with the weapons the Panthers have than Bryce Young can, because he's been in the league forever. We saw last year with New Orleans, no, he's not going to do anything to beat a team, but he's competent. I mean, he can at least get the ball to these guys. That's why I love Thielen and Mingo. And DK, if you want to do a really cheap stack, you can go with Dalton, Mingo, and Thielen for $12,200. Then you can load up with Jefferson. I mean, you can have Bijan. You can have whoever you want. The reason I'm confident that through 2 games, these Seahawks, to wide receivers, 35 receptions, 468 yards, 3 touchdowns. And remember, I think the most shocking outcome from week 1 was just the fact that the Rams, without Cooper Kupp, threw all over this team. I was just shocked at that result. On the other side, it could be the Kenneth Walker game. I hope it is for Kenneth Walker fantasy owners, because if not for those 2 touchdowns, he has kind of had a tough time getting going this year. But, I mean, this Carolina D is for real. They've got 8 sacks on the year, and I'm not totally sold on that Seattle offensive line from what we've seen. I think everybody remembers Poor Gino screaming for his life as Aaron Donald. And again, no judgment, Gino. I would probably be pissing myself as I was screaming if Aaron Donald was running at me trying to hit me. But I think if Kenneth Walker doesn't get it going, I really do. I think Carolina's got a great chance to win this game. And I'm not saying go out and do these stacks, and a majority of your lineups. But if you're in one of these big contests and to win one of these or to do really well, you got to be very contrarian. This is the kind of thing where you can do it, where say Andy Dalton throws 2-3 touchdowns, each of those receivers catch one, and then you've got all that extra salary that you can spend and you hit all those expensive plays. Okay, now you're maybe on your way to a very profitable day.
Nice. I like it. Calling for the upset. All right, let's get to the next one. Bears at the Chiefs. We're getting to the lopsided games here for sure. Bears against fantasy QBs are 26, against running backs are 27, receivers 20th, tight ends 12th. Chiefs defense been surprisingly good against fantasy QBs 5th, 6th against running backs, 13th against receivers, 22nd versus tight ends. Justin, talk about the matchup.
So obvious one, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. You just put them in, set it and forget it. You're good to go.
Okay, Fred.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. That is groundbreaking information right there. That's really going to win you your DFS lineups.
I'm gonna get my phone out.
Here's one for you. Yeah, right. Here's one for you. Racey Rice. They need to get somebody involved in this offense, and he looked really good week 1. I think he could be somebody who really can pop off. And then maybe we see a Jerick McKinnon sighting. I don't know. This team is getting really predictable, and it's starting to actually be their downfall as they're getting so predictable on offense. If it's not Kelce, then it's really, nobody else. I mean, everybody else kind of does not have a grip on this offense, at least enough for Andy Reid to want to go to him 10 times a game like he would Travis Kelce. So for this offense, I say kind of just set it and forget it. And if you want to really like a sleeper out there, throw Racey Rice out there. He's a rookie. He hasn't been stone hand before. And, he's got a touchdown so far. So maybe we can replicate that success. On the other side, this is actually a good game for Justin Fields. I think this could be one of those really flip the switch type of games for him. He got called out. Let's see some accountability. Let's see some mojo. Let's see something out of the kid. Last week, DJ Moore, the connection was there. They went for over 100 yards. DJ Moore caught 6 passes. Let's get it going. I think he's going to start running the ball a little bit more. He's been really being a pocket passer and really trying to be a quarterback. Boss, we didn't draft you to be that type of a quarterback. We brought you in to be an improviser. We brought you in to use your legs when necessary. They really brought him in because he ran a 4.4 and looks like Lamar Jackson when he's running out there. So kind of take that and use it. Your offensive line is shit. Go out there, run the ball a little bit, keep Kansas City on its feet. You let those edge rushers be guessing the entire time. They can't overstep you. They have to be in contain, and then let the offense settle off of that. Another guy, Cole Kmet. I'm actually okay with it. I'm actually okay with starting Cole Kmet if you got him. I mean, it's a crapshoot anyways at tight end. Might as well. If he scores a touchdown, it's a win-win, right? And as far as the running back goes, no. I'm not going to do it. Herbert and Roshan have not decided who's going to be the lead yet, so I'm going to let them figure that one out before I successfully play one or want to play one in fantasy.
Well, I think as you mentioned, game script's going to dictate it's going to be a Justin Fields going to have today, or this Bears team is either going to
he's going to have to play MVP ball.
Right, exactly. So, I don't see a lot out of the running game either. All right, let's get to the next blowout theme of the day: the Cowboys at the Cardinals. Cowboys D, number 1 against QBs, number 2 against running backs, number 1 against receivers, 15th versus tight ends. Cardinals 30th versus fantasy QBs, 17th versus running backs, 14th versus receivers, 23rd versus tight end. Jordan, what say you? And I did not bring up Trayvon Diggs' ACL tear with Doc on purpose, but I'll just bring it up now. So go ahead and start.
I was just hoping we would gloss over that this episode, not have another couple of days to cope, but it's okay. We should be fine. I'll talk about that on Sunday. And listen, it's the Arizona Cardinals, and although they did come out and punch the New York Giants in the mouth, it's the New York Giants. So I'm starting every Cowboy with a pulse. I'm starting CD. I think this may be the week he finally gets in the end zone. Fingers crossed. Once again, I've been banging the drum for weeks, but my boy got into the end zone this week, Jake Ferguson. Dak is absolutely pounding it into the tight ends in the red zone. Schoonmaker got a catch and a touchdown last week as well. So, I mean, you're looking for those daily darts, those Cowboy tight ends. There's an above average chance one of them is going to get into the end zone this week. I think this is going to be a big Tony Pollard week. I expect Dallas to pounce out to an early lead and to ride him for the rest of the game. On the other side of the ball, I mean, you know, if you got James Conner and you want to start him, I wouldn't advise it. I've seen guys like Breece Hall and Saquon Barkley both run into an absolute complete brick wall, but who knows, they may get lucky on one drive like Garrett Wilson did last week. Other than that, I'm sitting all the Cardinals. I'm not trotting out Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, anybody like that with any kind of confidence either. If I have those guys, they're probably sitting on my bench.
One of the easy eliminator picks this week for sure is this.
Don't jinx it now. Come on.
I said it to the whole damn chat last week.
I already put it in. I better not jinx it. All right, listen, we talked about some lineups. Let's get to some flex starts. I got Bandy from Fourth and Flex Podcast. He's going to bring in his flex starts of the week. Let's see what he's got.
Welcome back to Bandy's Flex Starts of the Week. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bandy's Flex Starts of the Week, baby. Let's get into it. First guy on my list is a guy that, you know, I've been blowing this horn all off season. I'm pretty sure I'll probably make this list again, and that is Nico Collins. Over on the Texans, listen, this guy is emerging as the number one wide receiver on this team. You can probably still find him on the waiver. You could probably put him in your wide receiver slot, but for this week, Nico Collins going in my flex spot. Let's go. Moving to the next guy, I've got Jaylen Warren. Bam, Jaylen Warren. Najee has just not been looking like the guy. And the Steelers, they're smart enough to realize that when Jaylen Warren gets the ball, he is dynamite. So put Jaylen Warren in your flex spot this week. Moving to the last guy on this list, another surprise this year. Hanging with his boy over in Detroit, that is Joshua Reynolds. Look, man, I saw week one, I thought, maybe it's an anomaly. But then week two, dude goes off. Looks like Jared Goff is looking for this guy, emerging as one of the top guys, while Amon-Ra is getting the double coverage. Check out Josh Reynolds. Throw him in your flex spot. LFG. For more fantasy advice and hot takes from your boys, go to Fourth and Flex at YouTube. Find us. We'll get you where you need to be, baby. Let's go.
Thank you. I've been working out.
Good old Banny bringing us the flex. He loves him some Nico Collins, boy. I swear. Even from last year, he was talking about that guy.
Off-season.
He loves him. All right, let's finish up the breakdown. Steelers at the Raiders. Steelers against fantasy QBs. They're 13th against running backs. They are dead last against receivers. 19th against tight ends. They're 9th. Raiders 23rd against fantasy QBs. 31st against running backs. 22nd against receivers. And 29th against tight ends. Keith, talk about the matchup.
Well, it's apparent we're being punished this week because Sunday night we get the Raiders and the Steelers, which I don't think anybody really wants to watch. Props to those people that were talking about Pittsburgh winning the division and competing for the AFC. Yeah. I don't know what to do with this game. Like, honestly, I really don't. The Steelers D, they have 9 sacks. They can get after the QB, but you're talking about the running backs. 33 carries for 332 yards in 2 games. I mean, Nick Chubb, RIP, my man, rips his leg, and then Ford comes in and just does the same thing, starts ripping off 8, 10-yard runs. The issue is Josh Jacobs, 28 carries for 46 yards. What the hell is going on? This is not the same Raiders run team that we saw last year. And you've been able to throw on the Steelers as well. Ayuk had that big game week 1, 8 for 129, 2 touchdowns. Mark Cooper had 8 catches for 90 yards last week, but Adams is just so limited. It was why I was kind of down on him this year. Jimmy G sucks. I have friends that are 49ers fans. They hate him. They hate that dude. Like, hate him. He's serviceable, I guess, if you want to call it, but your ceiling is very low. Adams, 12 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, obviously, if you drafted Jacobs, I don't see a way that you can sit him. If obviously you've got to play Adams. On the Steelers side, I'm kind of with him. Like, Pickens, I ain't starting Harris right now, but I mean, this is a game for DFS. I'm not even doing a showdown lineup. If I could do like 3 defenses, maybe I would, and 3 kickers, but I can't. I'm gonna stay away from it. But I guess we'll all watch and see what happens. I have no idea what's going to happen, though. It wouldn't shock me if the Steelers completely dominate the Raiders defensively. It also wouldn't shock me if Josh Jacobs runs for 200 yards.
Yeah, this was definitely the interesting one for sure. What you were looking at, I was looking at the breakdown of it. Makes you really want to say, hey, if there's a game, we were talking about this earlier with Pitts and some other guys. Najee Harris, if this is your game, this is it right here, buddy. You better step up, or it's trouble for you for sure. All right, let's get to the next one. Eagles at the Bucks. That's the dual Monday night again, which is super annoying.
Why are they doing this? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'm over it.
If you double up prime time, maybe one of them won't suck.
That's fair.
Yeah, maybe.
That's just weird they did it twice. Last week I got it. I don't know.
Yeah, save it for like a special occasion or something.
Right?
Like
Exactly.
Holiday or something. Yeah. Holiday week.
Exactly.
Or you know what? I actually like this idea. If you have that set and you kind of go week to week, then you can push the Pittsburgh Raider game out of that slot and just keep the fucking Eagles Buck game there.
Yep, I like it.
Because nobody wants to see the fucking Raiders play football. I'm sorry.
Just slide it out. An early flex option for sure. All right, let's go. Eagles at the Bucks. The Eagles are dead last against fantasy QBs. Baker Mayfield, what? The running backs are 10th, receivers 27th, dead last also against tight ends. Bucks 15th against QBs, 9th against running backs, 21st against receivers, 25th against tight ends. Talk about the matchup, Justin.
Okay, so this kind of reminds me of 2019 when the 49ers played the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers had a young man named Kyle Allen rolling on the field, and he was feeling himself through 4 games too, a lot like Baker Mayfield is. And then he went onto the field with the 49ers, and he found out. He fucked around for a long time, and he found out. And so I'm looking at Baker Mayfield, man, and I enjoy the story, but you're going to
turn back into a pumpkin. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. He is going to find out. These numbers are very deceptive. The Eagles seem to be just kind of getting their bearings behind them. They have a lot of guys. They have a rookie playing on the interior line who's been playing fantastic, but he's playing next to a second-year guy. They really kind of cleaned house to afford Jalen Hurts, and now they're kind of facing, the repercussions, the consequences of it. You got a young team growing with each other. Everybody's talented on there, but it's young. So it's kind of like a true meeting here because the Bucs are playing out of their minds right now, and the Eagles are not playing up to snuff. But they both kind of are on a level field at the current status that they are. So either the Bucs are going to play way beyond their pay grade, or the Eagles are going to shut down the Bucs permanently for the season, and it's going to go straight into decline mode for Baker Mayfield after that. I am going to say this. I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a rough week. I am putting it out there. I think it's going to be a bold prediction. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to lose. I'm saying it's not going to be the best week for Jalen Hurts if you're a fantasy owner. If you're looking for that top 5 performance, I don't think it's coming this week. I think he might crack the top 12. As far as the rest of the offensive options, both running backs, Rashad White or DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has the upside of being a pass catcher. I guess so does Rashad White too. But, I think DeAndre Swift's a little bit better at it. I think that might save him as a flex option this week. I think the Bucs are really legit. They're old linebackers, but they're old, good linebackers. You got Levante David still there. You got still Devin White there. So you got some guys that know how to stop the run and fill the gaps. I think it's going to be tough for DeAndre Swift to play this week. Devonta Smith, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Deonta. Devonta Smith, like his play this week. A.J. Brown has been really slow. Hopefully he gets going. But I think one of them is gonna outplay the other. And I think one of them is going to be in that wide receiver 3 tier. Dallas Goedert, I don't know what's going on with that connection. That connection was looking so good last year. And now it's just fizzling out. He had 6 catches for 22 yards.
It's a different offensive scheme, really. Like, they're not doing a lot of the RPO stuff. That they're really missing their coordinator that went, is now the head coach of the Colts.
Yeah, Steichen was, it's kind of looking like he was like the key to that entire offense going. And yeah, whatever's going on, they need to kind of revisit that playbook. On the Bucs side, I like Godwin in this one, and I like it because of the PPR upside. I think Mike Evans is going to have his hands full with Darius Slay this week. Cade Otton, it looks like a good matchup on paper, but Cade Otton is still not proven to be anybody in this league. So until he really does prove to be somebody, why are you going to fucking play him? Why are you going to put him out there? You know what I mean? I'd rather him prove he's going to be somebody on my bench, and then I'll play him later on in the season.
Otton or Trotman? Who would you run out there first?
Oh, Otton all day long. Don't even get me started on Trotman. I still can't believe Sean Payton is that loyal to a man. But yeah, so that's and then Baker Mayfield. Oh man, I'm sorry. I really think it's the end of the story here. I think this is the end of the line. Pumpkin is coming. Do not put out Baker Mayfield in this game. I think it is going to be a brutal game for you if you do.
The Kyle Trask talk begins, so says Justin. All right, let's go to the final matchup to Mr. Jordan. Rams at the Bengals. Rams against fantasy QBs are 8th, against running backs are 13th. Receivers 9th, against tight ends 6th. Bengals 29th against fantasy QBs, 14th versus running backs, 11th versus receivers, and 28th versus tight ends. Finish up the matchup, Jordan.
This matchup is for everybody who thinks they know anything about fantasy football. It is humbling to look at this one, right? I'm sure everybody had Kyron Williams dialed in as a smash locked in RB1 the rest of the way. And let's not forget about wide receiver 3 on the season, Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford looks like he's about ready to lead another team to a Super Bowl. Maybe that one's a little bit too much. Sorry, Justin. I see your blood pressure rising up there. But, he's looked much more like Stafford of 2 years ago than Stafford of last year. Man, this Rams offense has been surprising. And then on the other side of the field, I'm sure you guys heard us this offseason when we said, look, don't start Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase in weeks 1 and 2, right? Because, geez, what is wrong with this offense? You still got to start both of these guys. The one saving grace is if maybe they do sit Joe Burrow this week with that calf. Maybe that's enough to temper the expectations and say, okay, maybe I won't trot out Chase again. But, on any given week, Chase, Higgins, any of these guys could hit. I am starting, and again, something I was very against this offseason. I'm smashing Joe Mixon the rest of the way. The volume's there. The going's good. I really wish I'd gotten a few more shares of him and listened to my boy Commissioner Cooper, because Joe Mixon's getting all the opportunity in Cincinnati. So this is actually probably the sexiest matchup I got to cover all week. I'm not starting any of the Tutu Atwells. I'm not starting Van Jefferson. I think it's got a blown head gasket and can go ahead and be parked permanently. Probably not starting Tyler Boyd this week, but start your studs and Kyron Williams, I guess.
Joe Mixon might be taking a page out of Christian McCaffrey, according to Brian. It might be playing QB this matchup as well. Who knows? All right, fellas. Well, Jordan, appreciate you finishing off our breakdown. Most of us are married or, have a significant other. It's time, hey, to hang out Friday night. Let's get the mood set right. We got Nikki in. She's going to give us some Friday night fantasies to set the mood for our weekend.
What's up, everybody? It's Nikki with the Blonde Blitz.
I want a diamond ring. I want some bracelets and everything. Daddy, you better get.
And here are my 3 fantasy loves for week 3. This week, I have a crush on Raheem Mostert. He's going up against a Broncos defense that just allowed Brian Robinson to run for 5 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns. I am infatuated with Hunter Henry this week, tight end 2. He is seeing about 6 targets in each game, and his usage has been consistent through the past couple weeks. 11 catches for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know the Jets have a stingy defense, but Hunter Henry's volume makes him a must start this week. And of course, my heart belongs to my very first fantasy love, Matt Stafford. The Rams have been having very nice fantasy outings the past couple weeks, and Stafford has passed for over 300 yards the past 2 weeks against 2 really tough defenses. This week, he's going up against a Bengals defense that has allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing QBs. This week, Matt Stafford is number 1 in my heart and should be number 1 in your lineup.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Oh, who knew Freddie was actually on the show? What's up, everyone? We appreciate you joining us tonight. Keith, my brother, appreciate you joining us and kicking it with us tonight. Let everyone where they can know they can follow, subscribe, and get all your great content, my friend.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, I always love chopping it up with you guys. Thanks for the invite. On Twitter, at Keith Flemming, that's KeithFleming. I'm writing for Fantasy Six Pack. I have 2 articles a week, DFS Values that comes out on Tuesday and a DFS Stacks that comes out on Friday. On Wednesdays, I go on ESPN Northwest Florida Radio at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 Central, and we talk DFS. I give kind of some value and median plays. And then on Thursday on the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel, me and my boy Joe the Brain Matz, at 7:15 we go live. We go over our favorite DFS plays. We give 2 each, again in the 6,500 or lower range on DraftKings, leading right up into that Thursday night game. And then Detroit Beastie and our boy Allen both come on. Chris ends up giving basically a showdown lineup for that night because I consider myself a DFS expert. I don't know how to do freaking showdown lineups. And Allen, who is just, I'm serious, if you're not following him and you gamble on NFL, actively lazy 85. He's 8-2 on the year in the Super Contest. Last year, he finished 11th out of 11,000 people in the MyBookie contest. He gives an official play with the spread for it. We just kind of get you ready because nobody really wants to watch Amazon pregame show. And obviously, you can catch that later. But you can always hit me up on Twitter. I always interact with people. If you have questions, I always respond. I love talking about this stuff. Could do it all day.
All right, brother. We appreciate you joining us. Check us out this Sunday, a special start time, 6:30 a.m. I got to get down to Miami to see America's team beat down the Broncos. So we got an early start time Sunday morning. Make sure you check us out. We got some fantasy friends coming along with us. So it's going to be a lot of fun for Sunday morning. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out tonight. And we are out.